right, we are back with Mr. Jerrod Williams giving us a little education on the court system. So again, thank you for being here, Mr. Williams. So we just last left off about appellate court decision making and how each each system of courts, which are the circuit courts, have their own appellate system essentially.
Yes.
And if two different decisions are rendered almost for the same situation, then the Supreme Court can step in and their decision is finito. That's it.
That is correct.
Okay.
That you have summed it up very nicely.
Okay. So one of the things that that interests me about the Supreme Court, especially here in Illinois, is that it is left leaning. So it is a Democratic control, but I think it's a 3-3 tie right now. Is that right? Like there is the possibility that there could be another Republican person added to our Supreme Court here in Illinois, or am I off with that?
Well, a lot of times lawyers, when they're arguing cases,
Okay.
They try to avoid the politics of it.
Okay.
Now, we do recognize, particularly in decisions that we've seen from the United States Supreme Court, there may be a particular ideology that's at play. As attorneys, however, I believe that attorneys try to confine their arguments to the law and the facts. Now, that's not to say that you can't argue certain policy issues. You may argue that this is a good law because it helps a number of people, or this is a good law, this is a bad law because it hinders people's rights. And then based on individual judges' ideology, they may be more inclined to agree or disagree with you. But that is not the same as an attorney making a political argument.
Okay.
That should be avoided. What they should argue, they can argue legitimate policy issues, restricting rights, protecting people who need protection by the system, things of that nature. And then it's up to the judges to decide.
Okay.
So I guess the long story short is we try to avoid politics.
Right. Now, I understand that, and the reason why I asked you, because obviously it's a U.S. Supreme Court rollback, Roe v. Wade. It is due mostly, if not mainly, because we have more right-leaning or Republican idealized or judges that have that ideology.
Right.
And so one of the things that I was looking at as I was looking at some Supreme Court facts about Illinois, I was just like, yeah, we're very close to potentially leaning right, possibly. You know what I mean? And I thought about that, what that means for Roe v. Wade for us. You know what I mean? Because I know that our Supreme Court will uphold it, and our governor and mayor and other legislators are, really or staunchly behind, women's reproductive rights. But if our Supreme Court potentially ends up leaning right, that could possibly go away for here as well. Is that right?
Well,
I don't want to do no fear mongering. I don't want to get nobody, but I do want, because again, that's what I read, and as I was reading it, and I don't know this, but I was like, kind of sounds a little bit like that could be a possible direction if, in fact, that does happen. We get one more Republican judge on the bench.
Well, obviously that remains to be seen.
Absolutely.
What we can say is that what we now know is that elections matter. And
True indeed.
In Illinois, we elect our judges.
True indeed.
So judicial elections matter too. The judges are always listed in what they call down ballot, at the end of the ballot. And it's difficult to get to all of those races. There's a lot of judicial candidates.
A lot of names too, in some races. Yes, sir.
There's a lot of fatigue by the time you get to the booth.
Yes, sir.
And you've done the primary executive branch candidates, and you've done a few referendum questions, and now you're faced with the 3 pages of judges. It's easy to just say I have to get back to work. It's our system, but what we know is that judicial elections do matter. So people need to pay attention, as you are bringing up, to the judges they are electing. And they also need to pay attention to the representatives that they're electing who are going to select those federal court judges. Because, at the federal level is divided into 3 levels, just like the Illinois court system that I described before. You have your federal trial court judges. They're called district court judges. Then you have an appeals court that's made up of a combination of states, Illinois sits in what's called the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. So that's Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan. We may have left one out, but those three states join together to form the Seventh Circuit, and that's a Court of Appeals. And then you have the U.S. Supreme Court. Well, our state senator is involved in selecting both our district and circuit court judges. So those elections matter as well. Even though those are not elected positions, the state senator is extremely influential in getting those people appointed.
Never knew that. Yeah. Thank you for teaching me something new.
Yeah.
So our state senators elect our federal judges.
Not elect, but nominate.
Nominate.
And of course, that's going to carry a lot of weight.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay.
The actual selection of judges is actually done by the Judiciary Committee at the House of Representatives.
So Congress.
Congress, yes. Every federal judge is appointed by Congress. Not by the senator, not by the governor, Congress. Okay. But of course, again, if the senator is nominating, this is our nominee, this is our candidate, that's going to carry a lot of weight.
Wow, I get that. Totally mind blown. That's what's up. I love learning new things. So take us through the different courts. There are 3 levels, right? Like you say, entry is your circuit. The intermediate would be the appellate, and then the Supreme Court would be the most advanced, the highest court in the land.
Right, and actually the term that we use is the court of last resort.
Okay.
That it's your last chance.
Okay. Okay.
That's true and not true. It's your last chance in Illinois. There are ways to take a state case into the federal court system.
Okay.
Let me just explain that just really briefly. One example, in a criminal prosecution. Let's say you're accused of a crime, and at the trial court level, in that first entry level, you're found guilty. You appeal to the intermediate appellate court. The appellate court, they do what they call affirming that conviction. They don't reconvict you, they just affirm or reverse the conviction that was had in the trial court.
And that is where you potentially get no time, less time, more time?
You can, but it's much more common for that case to then go back to the trial court.
Okay.
So let's say there's a sentencing issue. This sentence is completely disproportionate to my crime. It's way too long. The appellate, you bring that up on appeal. And let's say the appellate court agrees with you. The appellate court does have the power to give you a new sentence. They can't. They usually do not. They usually send that decision back to the trial court to make that decision. And there's a good reason for that. The reason for that is, as you are sort of making your case, explaining all of the reasons why this sentence is too long for you and the crime that you did, the appellate court can't see you. They can't interact with you. They can't judge the sincerity of your words, the depth of your feelings.
So
the trial court can see and interact with you, talking to you. That's why they're in a much better position to make those kinds of decisions where you really have to interact with the individual. Okay,
so your appellate court, essentially they would get a docket or some pieces of paper that details you and kind of the state of your situation, and then they just go through it and just affirm, this looks about right. You got the time you're supposed to get, and then just send it back down. Is that how they go?
That's a fair summation. You're bringing up all the right sort of issues. What you just described. What we call that the cold record.
Okay.
The cold record, and you've described it perfectly. For the most part. What we get is, first of all, we get all of the pleadings in the case. The pleadings are things like the complaint against you, the indictment by the grand jury. Sometimes there's some limited discovery material, such as if there's a deposition or questions posed to another party, which are technically called interrogatories. But the other thing we get is a transcript. So most people, they're familiar with courtrooms, and they see the court report. And the court reporter is taking down everything that is said. Well, we get a copy of that, and we can read it. So the first time through, when this person who's now been convicted is making their case to the judge, Judge, I'm sorry, it will never happen again. Please give me a life sentence. I still have a chance to be a productive member of society.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge says, no, you don't. I'm going to give you the maximum.
Mm-hmm.
Now this person appeals.
Mm-hmm.
Everything he said to that judge is in the transcript, so I can read it.
Okay.
What I can't do is see him.
Mm-hmm.
See if when he said those words, if he really seems
sincere. Yeah, got you. Got you. Okay.
So I'm using that term very generically. What the appellate court can do is to say, there seems like there's something there. Trial judge, we want you to take a second look. Reconsider this. Have another hearing. Let him come back in and make this case to you again, because we think there may be some validity to his argument that he made a good case for a lower sentence. Try again. And we'll let that trial judge, the court will let that trial judge try again.
Okay. Let me pause right there to pay some bills.
All right, now we're back again with 21 questions. When we go around the community asking civic engagement questions of people from the west side of Chicago, we just try to see where they at with their politics, and we bringing it right to you. So, we already know we have Terrence, and we want to keep... Okay, sir, who are you?
My name is T Knight, a.k.a. Happy Bear.
All right, Happy Bear.
I guess.
So, as I mentioned, I'm just going around asking community members questions around to see where their civic engagement is. So the first question I have for you, sir. Democrat, Republican, or independent?
I am independent. INDTPNTD. Okay. INDEPENDENT. Do you know what that means? All right. I'm independent.
Can I ask you why?
Well, I'm independent because, Republican, Democrat, they don't represent me. So I represent myself.
Your thoughts ain't my thoughts.
Good answer. I'm not mad at that. How many elected positions are there for the House of Representatives?
Isn't it 244? 432?
Almost doesn't count.
Something like that.
No.
How many elected positions are there for the Senate?
100.
My man.
Thank you.